Hello, everybody. Let's talk about the most common cause of vertigo and how we treat it. The most common cause of vertigo is BPPV, which stands for Benign Paroxysmal Positional Vertigo. That's a mouthful that basically means it's benign. It's not going to kill you. It's paroxysmal, meaning it's going to come on suddenly, intense, sometimes. So paroxysmal sometimes suddenly happens. And it's positional, meaning it's related to your head position. And it's vertigo. It's this false sensation of this hallucination of movement, usually in the form of spinning because it's vertigo. And it's going to last 15 to 30 seconds, sometimes up to 60 seconds. It occurs when an otaconium, so an inner ear crystal, breaks free from the otolith and drifts through your semicircular canals of your vestibular system. These semicircular canals are where your body uses to detect angular acceleration, like spinning. So when these crystals move the fluid through your canals that should normally move with head rotation and with body rotation, your brain perceives an angular acceleration even when you're not moving, thus you start spinning. You roll over in bed, and instead of just stopping when you're done rolling over, you feel like the whole room is spinning with you for the next 30 to 60 seconds, and it can be really terrifying as someone who's experienced this. So who is the most impacted or at risk? The classically reported risk factors for BPPV are going to be head trauma, so naturally you're kind of dislodging those crystals. Surgery, so anything kind of going on in the head that can possibly move those crystals around, having an inner ear disease, prolonged head reclining, hanging out in a dental exam or a hair salon can allow those crystals to drift into that posterior canal. One interesting finding is that we see that BPPV tends to affect women 2 to 3 times more often than it affects men, and it's usually going to be women in the age range of 50 to 60 years old. Other risk factors that we see cited in the literature include hypertension, so high blood pressure, osteoporosis, non-sleep apnea related sleep disorders, and then interestingly, higher income and like urban city living. Now keep in mind that these risk factors are not rules that are written in stone. What's the treatment? The gold standard is to do what's called a canalith repositioning maneuver. That's fancy speak for we move your head in ways to put the crystal back in its place. So depending on the triggering movements, whether you're rolling over to your right side or your left side, and your physical exam findings, we commonly have to treat for either the posterior canal or the horizontal canal. And those treatments are called the Epley and the Lempert or the barbecue roll maneuver. And of your 3 semicircular canals, you have anterior, posterior, and horizontal. The posterior canal is kind of the usual culprit. In 60 to 90% of cases, we're going to see that the canal involved is a posterior canal. Outside of in-office maneuvers, there are at-home maneuvers like the modified somersault treatment for posterior canal BPPV. These at-home treatments are really valuable because they can help improve treatment efficacy and kind of reduce the need for you to come in for multiple office visits. One thing I'm going to say about that is the treatments aren't fun because it's a canalith repositioning maneuver. We're moving that crystal. The whole problem in BPPV is that crystal moves and causes vertigo. The treatment itself feels pretty spinny and vertiginous and not very fun. So if we can have you do some of this stuff at home and kind of keep the progress rolling, you don't have to come back to the doctor's office and get all sweaty and scared because we're going to hang you off the table and make you spin. So it's kind of nice to have these options at home to just kind of reduce the treatment visits. Now, how often does it come back? Unfortunately, the risk of recurrence is relatively high at 15 to 20% annual recurrence rate. What that means is if you have BPPV once, there's a 15 to 20% chance, so maybe a 1 in 5 chance that you're going to have it again in the next year. The risk factors for recurrence include being female, hypertension, so high blood pressure again, diabetes, high cholesterol or hyperlipidemia, osteoporosis, and vitamin D deficiency. Now you'll notice that a lot of those are things that can be addressed. These risk factors for recurrence can be addressed with nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, things like that. For example, we see that physically inactive older women have a 2.6 times higher risk of BPPV than regularly active older women. And additionally, when we look at that vitamin D level, if it's less than 30, so you have insufficient or deficient vitamin D, we can increase your odds of BPPV by 3, so almost 4 to 23 times. And in some cool repeatable research that's growing, we find that vitamin D supplementation appears to reduce the risk of BPPV by 63%. What that means is if you've experienced BPPV and you don't want another go at it, you probably want to start exercising, eating differently, and you maybe want to check your vitamin D levels to get them above 30. Now, it wouldn't be my channel if I didn't bring concussion into this. Dizziness is a really prevalent symptom after concussion, and generally speaking, we already said that head trauma is a risk factor for BPPV. Still, it's hard to pin all of the post-concussion dizziness people experience on BPPV. The general prevalence of BPPV after concussion ranges from around 5 to 57%. But we still need to assess for autonomic causes of dizziness like POTS. We need to look at the visual system, the vestibular system outside of BPPV, and then proprioception and all of that, and kind of how it all influences your posture and spatial awareness. Summary: BPPV stands for Benign Paroxysmal Positional Vertigo. It's a type of vertigo that won't kill you. It's going to come on sometimes suddenly when you move your head, and it's due to dislodged crystals that are moving through your vestibular canals to create this false sense of motion, this spinning. The treatment involves repositioning your head and repositioning your canals to move that otolith back to its home. And there's an exciting body of literature growing saying that, hey, getting your vitamin D levels up to par might actually reduce your recurrence of this happening again. There's a definite relationship between BPPV and concussion due to the nature of the head trauma. It's just how often we see it varies widely, and some of that might be due to just it self-resolving because you move, you spin, and then that crystal goes back to its home. So regardless of your risk factors or the cause, getting to a qualified healthcare professional for the evaluation and the treatment can provide relief in as little as 1 to 2 sessions, though you definitely want to do that. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Thank you guys for watching.